Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, where we explore the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. I'm your host, Tay Jones. Hello and welcome. Today's guest is Dirk Graham, a 20-year law enforcement veteran, currently working in the Pacific Northwest as a detective with a large sheriff's office. Besides being a raving Seahawks fan, a curator of hilarious memes, and Monster energy drink connoisseur, he's a man whose profession, through a critical incident early in his career, has brought him down a journey of mental health, enlightenment, and personal healing. So, Dirk Graham, welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's nice to actually meet you like face to face, and working in the same area for a while. We may have met each other. I don't know, but it's nice to be here. So
yeah, absolutely. And it is funny. We've known each other for quite some time, but yeah, like you said, I don't think we've ever really met each other or knew that we ran into each other. But working at some point, in the same county, but at least neighboring cities, and I'm sure our paths had crossed a few
absolutely.
times. We just didn't quite know that. So
Absolutely.
but I'm glad that you came on. I mean, someone being in the law enforcement community myself, not currently, but I left 4.5 years ago, I guess. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, and I know it's going to be a great one. But before we dive too deep into your story, we try to keep it a little bit light and get to know you a little bit. So, obviously you're up in the Pacific Northwest. Is that where you're from, or did you grow up somewhere else?
I grew up in Spokane, Washington, so still in the Pacific Northwest, but Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised there. Went to high school at Meade High School over in Spokane, and I got my college degree from Eastern Washington University, so kind of near that same area. And then started in law enforcement, and that was up in Alaska initially. So we can delve into that too. But grew up in Spokane. So
yeah. So I mean, Alaska, I don't know, and that was the other connection. I actually kind of forgot that we had that, because that's where I'm from. I'm from Juneau, Alaska, and I think that's where you worked, right?
Oh yeah. That's right. Well, that's where I was a cop. I was a cop in Juneau, Alaska, which is crazy. So
yeah, I mean, what took you? Did you go up there specifically to be an officer, or did you go up there for something else and just fell into law enforcement?
100% went up there to be a cop. Back in 2006 when I got hired, like it was hard to get hired as a cop down here. It was very competitive. I was testing everywhere, and my dad was like, hey, whatever department offers you a job first, take it. He's like, you never know, if you pass it up, another opportunity might not pop open. And so I got offered a job with Juneau PD in, I think it was July of 2006, and I took it. And I had never stepped foot in Alaska until I did the interview process. And
wow,
I just kind of spread my wings and was like, let's see how it goes. And I'm glad I did it. It was a good experience and a cool little city. I liked it. So
yeah, it was a good place to grow up. I'm glad I didn't stick around up there and be a cop. I think it's tough if you're from there, because everybody. I mean, it's like 30,000 people. It's not tiny, but it's everybody knows everybody's business up there. So it'd be a hard place to be a cop where you went to high school up there.
The small town policing atmosphere it's different, man. You'd go to like Fred Meyer or Costco, and you'd run into everybody that you've arrested or dealt with, and but the nice thing about a small town like that is I think there was a common like respect, I think, between law enforcement and the people you dealt with. I think it just was that kind of way in Alaska. And so I never had any issues. I see people all the time that I had arrested, and for the most part, people were cool. So that was kind of nice. So
yeah. And you had kind of mentioned there, it was so hard to get a job. It's amazing what it was like. Even when I started in 2007, it was kind of that, right? You had 100 people going for one job, and today, totally flipped on its head. Now I remember talking to some of the guys before I left who did all the recruiting. They would have a day where they would do like 6 oral board interviews, and they'd be lucky if one of them passed, and that was like their whole list, because it wasn't exactly the profession, I guess, that people were going after.
It's tough now. I mean, we're offering, I think our department's offering $40,000 signing bonus for lateral deputies, and that's like, I wasn't a thing when I lateraled down from Alaska after I was a cop there. I mean, they were just like, you're just happy to get hired by us. That was kind of the kind of the norm. Now it's like, hey man, here's some money. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty crazy how it's changed.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they gotta entice people to go into, especially up in the Pacific Northwest.
yeah,
In a lot of the reasons that I left, I know there's a lot of struggles up there with I
yeah,
heard once, I think in 2000, between 2020 and 21, that Seattle PD had lost 600 officers, and that they were currently at
yeah.
that time sitting at the same amount of police officers that they had in the 1950s. It was like 700, I think, ish, and they're slotted for like 1,400 cops.
100%. And I saw it, I've seen it firsthand working down in the Seattle area as a transit deputy. I've seen it, and it's very scarce, and it's too bad. It's an unsafe city, which sucks. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's too bad for law enforcement.
yeah. The last time I was there for some work, and we stayed right downtown, and man, it's a different place than it was 5, 10 years ago. Absolutely, it's changed.
Yeah, big
Yep.
time.
Yeah. And just law enforcement everywhere has changed, but I think up in the Pacific Northwest, in the Seattle, Portland area, a lot of places in California. I mean, it's just a different vibe, and you know, uh, but you still got to get the job done.
Absolutely, I'm still rocking and rolling, so I'm there.
Yeah.
We gotta do what we can with what we got, and you know, still charging. So
Yep. Yep. Watch each other's backs. So when you were a couple years up in Juneau, 2 years, is that what you said?
yeah, so just shy of 2 years. I did about a year and a half up there, and great experience. Good department, close knit. I liked working with all those guys and girls up there. But being from Washington State, I knew I wanted to move back eventually, and kind of what landed me down in the Seattle area was I ended up getting hired by Bellevue PD as a lateral in 2008, and that was kind of the place I wanted to go at the time. So,
Yeah.
and back in 2008, that was a great department to go to in my
Absolutely.
eyes. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're really growing, and they have a lot of
absolutely.
resources there. Yeah. So when you were up in
Yeah.
Alaska, that was always kind of the plan, I guess, not to stay up there long term, but to come back down to
Yeah,
Washington.
it was a short term. I went to the last state trooper academy up there, which is a top tier academy and tough, and it's paramilitary living on an island in Sitka, Alaska,
Hmm.
just a different world. But I liked the policing up there. I just knew that I wanted to get back to at least my home state, and I was born and raised in Washington State, and I thought about going back to Spokane at the time, but I think Bellevue was absolutely the best option for me, and it was a good department and a good fit, and so that's why I decided to go there. So,
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
what made you want to go into law enforcement in the first place?
you know, funny enough, I grew up in Spokane, and one of my dad's really good friends, he was a Spokane police officer, and
Hmm.
I got to know him as a young kid, and he actually rose up to the ranks as an assistant chief. And he took me out. He took me and my dad on a ride along when I was probably like 10 years old. Like I don't even know if that's legit or if it's okay.
Especially in
But like
Spokane.
we're at downtown Spokane, cruising around, catching bad guys and stuff like that. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. And I think that just stuck with me because initially I went to college not really knowing what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I didn't know if I wanted to be a cop, and just kind of as time went by, I was like, you know what, that's something that would be, I think, a good fit for me. I always wanted to give back to the community, I think, and just kind of like protect people, and that was kind of, I think, the main goal for me. And I think seeing my dad's friend, kind of put that fire in my blood a little bit. And I was like, you know what, I could do this. I could be a cop and do a good job and be fair and have discretion and help people. So I was kind of just was like, I put my mind to it, and I decided let's do it. And I started testing, and luckily I got hired. So that was kind of where it went. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny taking a ride along when you're 10 years old in Spokane. They put you to work, here. hold this heroin for a minute.
man, it was crazy. Like I remember being in a back alley, and like this, my dad's friend was like arresting some guys, I think for dope or something down this. I'm young, right? And I'm just like, this is awesome. I'm seeing
Yeah.
the lights and stuff, and it was kind of cool. And yeah, like I said at the time, I don't know if I was even supposed to be in a ride along, but it was a cool experience, and it stuck with me. So yeah, and it's been yeah almost 20 years of doing this, and
Yeah.
it's definitely been a ride.
Yep.
So,
What did you go to school for?
so criminal justice was kind of
Yeah.
what I ended up, doing at Eastern Washington University. I actually ended up getting an interdisciplinary studies degree with an emphasis in criminal justice. Is kind of what it boiled down to. And as I finished my degree at Eastern, I was a juvenile corrections officer for a couple of years. I
Oh,
kind of got into that initially, and kind of got my little bit of stepping stone, kind of figured out, that world of, criminal justice system, corrections. I thought kind of helped me with, talking to people and maybe interacting with, younger crowd that I'm going to deal with as a cop. And it was actually a really good experience. I liked it. So,
yeah. Yeah, actually,
yeah.
I worked at the Johnson Youth Center there in Juneau for a short
Oh, you
amount of
did?
short amount of
Okay.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I had actually gone through a police academy down in California before I really got into actual law enforcement down there. You kind of put yourself
Yeah.
through. They don't have not everywhere is
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
sponsored, but
Yep.
you can get post certified in California and kind of do it yourself and then get a job. It makes it easier to get hired. But at the time,
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be. But I knew law enforcement was a career, right? And I was young
Yeah.
enough where I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for the career yet. So I went and lived my life a little bit, and then I got into law enforcement a little bit later. I think I was like 28, 29 by the time
I mean, that's nothing wrong with that. I was
yeah,
23, and there's times where I'm like, man, I might be too young for this career. Like this, getting tossed in that at a young age is like, it's crazy. Like you're just kind of old enough to be responsible and be an adult, but now you're sitting here making life and death situations, decisions and stuff in crazy scenarios as a 23-year-old is to me is pretty crazy. I'm not saying people can't do it, but
yeah.
you're young, so
Yeah, I think one of the things too coming in for me, I think it was like we're saying an advantage because I had a lot of life before me, before life
yeah.
law enforcement, and I think that helps deal with people and situations a little bit better. I mean, I did notice maybe some of the people that came in straight out of college, like 21, 22, they're there for a few years and they've got more law enforcement than they have life, and I feel like
Yep.
it can kind of skew the way that they see the world a little bit. I don't know. Did you
Yep.
struggle with that at all, or maybe still? I mean, do you still do you kind
Um,
of do you have an ability to empathize with people, or is it just are you kind of like a hard ass cop?
no, I mean, I think I've gone through waves. I think certain scenarios or incidents that throughout my career made me jaded towards people and certain situations. I think I've worked on myself through the years on kind of coming back to a place where I can emphasize
Mm,
with different people. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you see so much crap
yeah,
on a daily basis that you're just like at some point you just kind of get fed up with it and you're like, dude, another call, another DV call, oh, I'm dealing with this guy again. Like you just get to a point where like you kind of stop giving a crap as far as being empathetic towards people, which can suck. My
yeah,
wife even gives me crap about it today sometimes where I'm like, I'll say something about somebody I see or something going on, and she's like, calm down. She's like, kids are around. She kind of has to remind me like, hey, you know, why don't we look at it from a different point of view?
yeah.
Maybe take it back a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. I've had it. I've gone up and down with that. I think throughout my career, it's just, I guess, unless you're in it, it's kind of hard to explain to certain people. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's what everybody kind of told me, and I know we'll get into some of this as far as, just kind of the mental health thing, but,
mhm.
you do see a ton of stuff as a cop and you get involved with a lot of things and you're often there for people's worst days and,
Yeah,
you walk around in these terrible scenes and then you just go to lunch after. It's like no big deal because you just get,
mm,
accustomed to it. But I did
yeah.
actually write a couple articles. I don't know if I ever shared them with you. I will after this.
Okay, yeah,
But one of them I was kind of it hit me after I left. A lot of people said, "Hey, after when you leave, just be careful because there's
yeah,
things that will
yeah.
come up that you don't realize that are going to come up." And that was I was like, "Oh, that's crazy," I'm excited
Mhm.
to be gone, but you do lose some of the mission and the sense of camaraderie and everything. And I had kind of related it to like the death by a thousand cuts. When you're in
Yeah,
the job every day. I mean, it's just cut, 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 cut. You don't realize it because it doesn't really affect you. Not that you're seeing or feeling,
yeah,
because you're in it. And when you're in it every
yep.
day, you wake up, you go back in it. You go home, you wake up, you go back in it. But when I stepped away, that was the first time that it kind of hit me like, wow, man, you do see and have to deal with a lot of stuff. And it's not really until I left where I started to actually realize some of the things that you kind of bury down deep inside and the things that you had seen and dealt with. But it does come back when you're not doing it every day. It's kind of interesting.
Kind of least expect it. I saw somebody talk about law enforcement and like trauma, right? And so they explained it pretty good. I mean, it's something you don't even think about even being as a cop. You're like, the normal person goes through, like 2 or 3 traumatic incidents throughout their life. And like a normal cop over a 20-year career might see like 600 or 700 traumatic incidents. And a traumatic incident can be as simple as like a fight with somebody on the street during an arrest, right? Like that's something that's not normal in somebody's normal day life. And that's traumatic, even if it's a minor thing for like you and I who have done cop work for so long. But that stuff adds up and you don't really kind of think about it. You're like, oh, that's just another fight. And then next thing you know, you're at home and you're like, now your adrenaline's starting to kind of crash and you're like, oh, dude, that was pretty crazy. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's pretty insane to think about that.
Yeah, I remember going to the undercover school with some of the Seattle guys and the instructors. They do it, and
Yeah.
I remember he was talking about. It was kind of funny. It's just similar to what we're saying, and how it's just a different world and what strikes people. And now I'm in the corporate world, and now I see the stuff that people freak out about. I'm like, what are we freaking out about? Like, no one's shooting at you. This is not a big deal. But that's what he was saying. People freak out. Like, he was talking to his neighbor one time, and his neighbor was like, he was struggling with something. He's like, man, what's going on? You all right? And he's, yeah, I was driving on the freeway the other day, and a semi truck in front of me, just the tire blew, and it scared me, and I'm just a little shaken up. He's like, oh, like, that's what's getting you. Like, to see that other people who aren't doing crazy things every day, the amount of things that can shake them is pretty impressive, So
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. So
yeah, pros and cons.
yeah, it's definitely a wild ride, and it does pop up throughout the years and stuff. Like certain things will still hit me to this day that I'm like, man, I didn't even think about that until I saw something at a store or was dealt with somebody, and I was like, oh, that kind of popped me back into like something I had dealt with as a cop right over the last 20 years. So yeah, it pops up. So yeah.
I would say one of the good things about law enforcement is there is so much to do. There's so many avenues that you can take, and I think you've done quite a few different things from patrol to detective work. What would you say is your favorite thing that you've done in law enforcement?
So I've I'm trying to think. Oh gosh, gone back years and years. So I've been patrol cop. I've been a PTO and an FTO. I've been a master police officer, and I've done a couple stints as a detective. I think being a detective has been probably my favorite assignment. Probably that and master police officer, because I was supervising probationary employees and training probationary employees as a master police officer, and I kind of liked that aspect, just kind of like helping mold and train people to be well-rounded cop. That was kind of fun, I thought. But I really like investigations. I like kind of digging into things. I like to put together a quality case, and that's kind of been my favorite part of law enforcement, I think, over the last 20 years. I did a stint in our special assault unit for my sheriff's office. And that was only a year. I probably would have done longer, but I had some family stuff going on at the time, and I kind of had to make the decision, what's more important, family or this position? And I made a decision to go back to patrol because it was a little bit easier for me to be present and be home. And so now the position I'm in now, I work as an investigator for one of our transit contracts within my sheriff's office. We're a big sheriff's office in the Seattle area. And that works. It's been good. It's been kind of a nice refresher, kind of a nice change for me going from patrol back to investigations and kind of introduce some different stuff that's not special assaults.
Yeah.
Special assaults, very specific stuff. Like you're dealing with, issues with children and adults, and it delves into like elder abuse and sexual assaults and child pornography, and a lot of those cases that are kind of pretty crazy, that can be kind of wear on people over the time that have to investigate it. So
that's what I've always said. I mean, I'm glad that there's people who are passionate about that job, because it wouldn't be for me. But it's necessary.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's a necessary job, but it's really hard. And I've seen people that I've worked with and been close to, that they go through that, and man, it's a struggle, but it's very satisfying. It seems, but and actually, I will say, just because doing the detective work and the pro act stuff,
Mm.
every door that I actually ever got to kick down in law enforcement was the door of someone who had brutally raped a child. So I've always like, man, that's kind of cool. It's cool to be involved with it, but to do the day-to-day investigation stuff on that, I don't like it. I've been in a lot of the interviews and things because that was kind of my specialty, was interview stuff. But yeah, it's a tough job. Even for a year doing it, I could imagine that would have been really difficult.
Oh yeah, I mean, I tell everybody, I'm like, there's cases that'll probably stick with me forever, that I'm never going to forget, even doing a year of that. And so, but I guess the plus side of those investigations they are important. And when you can put somebody in prison for a long time for stuff they've done to children, especially, that kind of makes it worth it as far as that job. And that's kind of what it boils down to. And I had a case that went to trial years later after I left SAU, and the guy ended up getting right around 18 years in prison for it. And I was like, that kind of made it go, okay, like that was tough work, but to me, that was worth it, doing that investigation, doing it right, and making sure that guy is sitting in a prison cell because that's where he needs to be. So
yeah,
that makes it definitely worthwhile making doing those investigations. So
yeah, it's righteous work, I will say.
Absolutely.
And 18
Absolutely.
years, I mean, for anybody listening, 18 years in Washington, that you got to really do. That's a great sentence in Washington. I mean, we've seen homicide, suspects get 18 years. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a good, and that was the second. That's what was frustrating is that specific case I was talking about. We had to try that twice. We had one juror that was like, nah, nope, wasn't going along with it being guilty, and it had to be retried again. And then, luckily it was a guilty plea or guilty verdict, and so that made it kind of even more like, all right,
yeah,
I'm happy with that. So
yeah. One of the guys I worked with, he was a lateral from. I don't know if it was Indianapolis or just one of the cities right outside, but a rough place nonetheless. And he was worked with us for like a year, and then he had to fly back to go to a trial. One of his robbery cases that he was, worked on, I think as a patrol guy, goes back, does the robbery trial. The guy got guilty verdict and had gotten sentenced and everything. Comes back, and I said, "Oh man, what's that like?" And when somebody does a robbery up there, what kind of prison sentences are we talking about? The guy got 45 years. I was like, 45 years? Like, man, that is crazy. Because I'm just so used to the Washington stuff where people don't do the time that you would think. And this guy had robbed a couple places and got 45 years in prison. So it was pretty impressive. Like, man, you can
definitely different criminal justice system in Washington State, obviously, and I won't delve too much into that because it is what it is. But yeah, that's crazy. That's good for Indianapolis, wherever he was from. So that's kind of how it should be. So hold people accountable, and then you won't have the crimes that are happening, in certain areas of the country. So
yeah. Man, so you've worked at 3 different agencies, and one of the big reasons I was having you on the show is to kind of talk about the critical incident that you had kind of early in your career, and then some of the struggles that kind of lead from that, and talk about that. So where were you working when you were involved in your shooting?
So I worked for Bellevue Police Department. So I've been there for, gosh, almost like exactly 3 years. So I've been working as a cop for about 4.5 years total. It was January of 2011, and pretty crazy busy night kind of going in Bellevue. Like, you worked pretty close to us. Bellevue was steady, but like there was times where I kind of look back even now, working where I'm at now, and I thought Bellevue wasn't that busy at times, and I'm kind of looking and I'm like, it is pretty steady. Like, we might not have got the violent crimes that some of the other cities around the King County area do get, but as far as like calls for service, we were pretty steady.
Yeah.
So I mean, you want me to talk about, break it down for you as far as like what took place? And
yeah, whatever you're comfortable sharing, just so we have an idea of what took place and how you've come to the other side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working graveyards because I worked graveyards my whole entire time at Bellevue, and it was a busy night. We had just arrested 2 people for possession of stolen vehicle and had a canine track, and I was in Crossroads area, which is kind of East Bellevue.
Yep.
And we got a call that was kind of toned out, and it was disturbance at with a weapon down at a Chevron in downtown area, kind of downtown of Bellevue area. So me and my partner, we're across the city, but everybody's tied up on calls. It's just been a kind of steady night. So I was supposed to go back and like do paperwork on these guys we just took in custody. I was primary, and I was like, all right, I guess we're going. So we were running code to this call, and we're kind of getting updates like, hey, this guy came into a Chevron. He's got a butcher knife. He's holding. He's saying he's holding this place hostage. You know, the store clerk's calling in saying like he threatened a girl with a butcher knife, and she's hiding in the bathroom. And so me and my partner are rolling code to this, and we're kind of like, oh crap, what's going to happen here? So so we came from the north end. We kind of parked and got on scene, and we were trying to kind of sneak in because that was the only way he wouldn't be able to see us from the front. And police tactics, right? You want to you don't want to just park out in front because you don't know what's going to happen, right? We have people that can be dangerous and have weapons, and obviously this is a weapon call. So me and my partner parked our cars. I ended up getting my rifle out, and so I was a little bit behind my partner that was in front of me, and I was trying to rack around into my rifle. And in my mind, I was like, "Hey, let's take this slow, kind of slice the pie around the corner, figure out where we're going from there." And my partner he's so what in police work, you're gonna when you hear the term like battle buddy, like this dude's my ride or die. We've been through a lot together. Like I trust him with my life. But he's also they call this Ren and Stimpy. So like I'm like the fat cat and he's like the chihuahua that's like always going, right? And so he's running in front of me. I'm like, hey, slow down. But right then we had a supervisor pull up in the front, kind of off to the side, and I think that's when the suspect saw that we were there. And so he came around the corner, and I don't think he thought we were gonna, be there. We kind of surprised him.
Yeah.
And so I was behind my partner, and he ran back towards the store with a butcher knife in his hand. And I lost sight of my partner. I'm coming around the corner, and I hear gunshots. And so I'm like, in my head, like, oh crap, my partner shot him. So I came around the corner. I see him on the ground, and he's got a knife next to his hand. And we're like, hey, stay on the ground. Don't get up. And then what he did is he grabbed the knife and tried to get up, and we ended up shooting him. And then go through all that procedure. Like that's when I tell everybody like training kicks in, right? Like I was like, hey, I got you covered, cuff him. Like all that stuff that you would know being a law enforcement officer. And we have other officers show up and they're like, hey, let's clear the building, make sure everybody's safe inside. And then it kind of like all of a sudden time stopped for a second, and I think me and my partner both realized what had just happened. And fire shows up, and unfortunately for this individual, he ended up being deceased. We ended up shooting and killing this guy. And then that's kind of where everything after that shooting kind of steps in. Like you're like, okay, I've never been in this situation. I need to be off to the side. I need to talk. I need to like have somebody with me, and then take me back to the PD to go through like the admin process of like, okay, now they're starting to investigate an officer involved shooting, and they're trying to, the guild stepping in, and like I'm not talking to anybody, and that's when the guild attorneys, and you kind of doing all that stuff through like the admin process afterwards. So, but I tell everybody, I'm like that. You always prepare for law enforcement shootings because it's something that you might have to do, but until you're in one of those, like you don't. It's hard to explain to people like what goes through your brain. I think it's a wide variety of things, but like that's a crazy situation. Like I don't even know how to explain it to people. It's a very violent situation, and it's very chaotic and insane, and yeah, it's just hard to explain like the aftermath of that, I guess. We can delve into like obviously mental health after, but like that's the scenario that I went through as a 4.5-year cop, still very young. I was 27 years old. Pretty crazy situation to go through, especially for an area like Bellevue. We probably average like maybe one officer involved shooting every couple of years, maybe every 3 years. I mean, it was not very often. So, yeah, that's the critical incident that took place at Bellevue PD, and it was pretty early on, and yeah, pretty crazy. So.
Yeah, and you're 27 years old. We were kind of talking about that, making split second decisions when people, they're young. What
Yeah.
what kind of timeline was it when you guys showed up to when you ended up firing on him?
So pretty quick because we got there and then one of our supervisors showed up and that's kind of when we were starting to kind of run down the hill. So it was probably like, I mean, we were probably there for like a minute or less before all this stuff went off. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I mean, I won't delve into like the person that we shot. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about who he was, but it is somebody that was known to us in Bellevue that we had dealt with before. And we didn't really know that until after the fact. But yeah, it was somebody that I had dealt with before in Bellevue. So,
yeah,
and in a city like that, just like in Redmond, you're going to run into people a lot. And he just happened to be somebody that we had dealt with before. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's I think it's important for people to realize, like you said, you were on the other side of the city. I
Yep.
actually I think I remember when this occurred. Um,
Yep.
um, but you're responding longer it took for you to show up and actually
Oh, 100%.
get into
100%.
this situation. So you're hearing everything on the radio, trying to get some sort of plan together. You get out, with your partner, and things happen fast. And I think that's important
They
for
did.
people to know, not just for the way that law enforcement is. It's these split second decisions, but it also, I think that's part of the stress on you. You get out and you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or ugly. It is what it is. And in this case, like you said that this was a justified police shooting, and it sounds
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
exactly like what you're saying. But um,
Yeah.
you get swept up. You said you're taking okay. The training took over. At what
Yeah.
point did you kind of say, okay, now, like, did you actually start to think about what happened? Like, I know you're doing aid and all that stuff. And then at what point did you go, whoa, this just
So
occurred?
I think after he was detained in handcuffs and I started to like look down on the ground and I realized there were shell casings all over the place. And I just was kind of like, oh, this is what just happened. Like that's when it kicked in and I was like, oh, we just got a shooting. Like this is real, right? Because it happened so quick. And they talk about um you talk about being like tunnel vision and then like what's like audio like having like not really hearing the gunshots, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember the word for it, but
Auditory exclusion, I think.
there you go,
Yeah.
right there. So I had both those happen. So I would tell you to this day that there were not two cars parked on the left side of where my shooting happened. And I've looked at crime scene photos and there are two cars parked there because my vision in that high stress situation was focused on the person. And so also I would tell you too, like me and my partner both shot multiple rounds with a pistol and a rifle. And I remember hearing shots, but like it wasn't that loud in that situation because my adrenaline was going so high, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it happens. Like a lot of people, they'll tell you that are high stress situations like that you get tunnel vision or you don't hear the shooting like you should. And um, yeah, I'll tell people today this. I know I saw the pictures. I know there was two cars there, but in my mind, that's not what was there, and it's pretty crazy to go through that.
Yeah.
So
It is amazing, what the body does to kind of that fight or flight
yeah,
and just to protect itself, too. Um,
absolutely.
and like you said, you get swept up after a shooting. You're taken in. You're talking to the union, the guild.
Yep.
Obviously, admin. Everybody wants to know what's happening. This is
Mm-hmm.
potentially, they got to make sure that everything's cleared, and then you start to think about, civil process, all this, like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So I want you to talk a little bit about that too, with just what sort of is the legal process after that. I mean, up into how long did it take to clear you from the shooting, just to have an
Yeah.
idea what you go through.
Yeah. Absolutely. So initially, you meet with a guild attorney, and I did a statement through them. So I told them exactly what I did. Um, and then that goes to detectives that investigate it. And I had to do a little bit of follow up questions on certain things through them. But in King County, and being in King County, there's a King County code or ordinance that the King County executive had written up years ago. And so any inline duty of death it's basically like mandatory. There's going to be an inquest. And so because this person ended up being deceased, we ended up doing an inquest about It's about 6 months later, which is pretty crazy because now I think they're backlogged like 5 years because of COVID and some of the other things that have happened. So 6 months later, all an inquest is, it's the fact finding. It's basically a fact finding case in a court. So you got a judge, you have 6 jurors, and they present this incident that took place. It was a 3-day inquest, and basically these jurors have to answer yes, no, or I don't know, basically to all these questions. And a lot of them are simple, like, hey, did Officer Graham show up to this scene on this time? Yes. Oh, did Officer Graham discharge his firearm in this scene? Yes or no? Like, so there's all those kind of questions. That in itself was, I tell everybody, I'm like, that was a tough situation because you already went through this crazy scene, shooting, right? But then 6 months later, you have to relive it and you got to talk about it in court. So as far as coming from an officer's perspective, that can be pretty tough, like especially if me or my partner hadn't really dealt with it yet. And so that could come out on the scene or, in court is basically like, you could get emotional and that stuff hits you at certain times, right? And so that was pretty crazy to do that. But I do have to say our inquest went well, and the fact that the person's family member, his father, was very supportive of me and my partner, and he talked about my son put himself in that situation. I wouldn't want you guys to do anything differently. He's like, you guys did exactly what you're supposed to do as far as training, and shook our hands. And to me, that was huge because I think that he had the like emotional intelligence to kind of read the situation and understand like kind of what took place. And that takes a lot for him to be able to like basically shake our hands and say, hey, you guys didn't do anything wrong. And that made it really, I think not as tough to do, to like as tough a situation. I think it could have been worse, obviously, if the family wasn't as supportive as that. That can be tough. So, but I think we didn't get cleared. I think it was a total of 11 months when I got a prosecutor letter saying, hey, the shooting was justified. And that's pretty common. Like it takes some time. But yeah, so it was about almost a year. So 11 months. So we were only on ab and leave for, and you know how it is. It's like 3 days basically. I think I took 6 days off total, and I was back to work. So yeah.
11 months though. That's pretty good because, like you said, I don't think that's the case today. It drags on for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is just the backlog stuff, but 11 months. I mean, that's no short amount of time either to have to deal with that and wonder, did I do the right thing? What are the repercussions of this? How's it going to affect everything? Because I know a lot of people when they, people switch departments too. I mean, you've been at 3 departments. Sometimes they get, especially now, today, if it takes, 4 years, you get into a shooting and you're untouchable. You're basically stuck. No one's going to hire you in the middle of a situation like that. So even if you're in the process, it's basically everything goes on hold until this is officially cleared up. So
yeah, which sucks. And luckily mine was cleared, and I ended up lateraling. Got 3 years after that, I went to the department I'm with now, and so and honestly, that was the best move I could have made for myself. That was a good. I went to a department that was a lot bigger, a lot more opportunity throughout the department to do different things, and I was very glad I made that decision. I wasn't. Bellevue was a good department, and I liked the people I worked with, and but I was ready maybe for a little bit of different leadership from above, and it's kind of more opportunity. And I don't know, maybe deep down that was like I was leaving that kind of behind a little bit too, moving to a different department, because ultimately me and my partner, we both left and went to the same department, so we both lateral to a different department, so in the same one, so yeah.
Yeah, I could see that, just getting out of the situation instead of driving by the same place every day, I could see how that could affect you.
Yeah, 100%.
Going through an incident like you were involved in, I mean, has that changed your opinion of the job at all?
Yeah, I mean, it probably has. The thing is, my wife would tell you to this day, something changes in you when you go through an incident like that. I am probably not the same person that I was before I met my wife. Um, uh, I don't know, man. We'll obviously we'll talk about mental health, but like I see a therapist every 2 weeks, and I've talked to my therapist multiple times about if I could go back 20 years, maybe I would have done something different
Yeah.
based on the mental health aspect of it. Yeah, it's a good question. I think I changed definitely after that day, but I don't know. So can you answer or can you ask it again? I kind of lost track as
Yeah.
far as what that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, going through something like that, if it's just changed any of your opinion of the job. And maybe it's an unknown, of
Yeah,
would I
that's a
do it
good
again?
question.
But
That's a good question. Like I know deep down, like that situation, there's nothing that probably could have changed what the outcome was. Yeah, I think it makes it a little bit more real when you're like you hear about the shootings that could take place, um, but when you're in the middle of it, it changes. And I know there's a statistic I saw recently, it was a while ago, and it talked about people that are not involved shootings in law enforcement. And there is a very high percentage of people that leave law enforcement after the next 5 years, they're out and they're no longer in law enforcement. And I can kind of see why. Um, it's a tough one to deal with. And I've obviously been, we're in what 15 years later now, and so I've had these ups and downs with mental health and stuff that I didn't even really think was affecting me. That was a really big problem.
yeah, were you married at the time?
So I was engaged. So I had just gotten engaged, and I think I got married about a month and a half after that. So,
Wow.
um, yeah. So my wife, she got to see kind of that transition. We got married, and then we've been married for 15 years now. We have 4 kids, and like
It's amazing.
lots changed since then. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm starting to kind of I've always been a funny guy and like cracking jokes and having a good time. And I think through some of that period of time where I dealt with mental health after this, I kind of became not that guy anymore. So, and I think she could probably tell you that, like from when we first started dating to after this happened, she's like, there was something in upstairs changed. Right. And so, um, yeah, I'm luckily I'm starting to kind of get back to like just being happy with life and um, cracking jokes and having a good time, and that's how I like to live life because life's too short. Being
Absolutely.
being uh, being stuck in a mental health crisis or cycle or depression it sucks. It's not fun. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys got married and you've been married for, what'd you say, 15 years?
15
Um,
years, yeah,
has
yeah.
it been a pretty big hit on the relationship to kind of, it's nice to have, sounds like a very supportive wife. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
you guys are going through this together. I'm assuming it affected your family as much as it
Yeah,
affected you, I
yeah,
guess is what I'm saying.
absolutely. I think so. My oldest kid was, gosh, 6, I think, when it happened. So I came into the relationship. My wife already had a son, and so I became stepdad.
Hmm.
And so he didn't really know what took place. Or he's young, and all my other kids are 14, 12, and 10 now. So they either weren't born yet or
Yeah.
so they don't really know the scenario of what took place. I think they kind of know dad was in a incident early on. Um, but yeah, I mean, my wife and I have both had mental health issues throughout the years. Hers are separate than mine. She deals with PTSD from a scenario that happened to her, years before I started dating her, and my PTSD that I eventually came to find out I was dealing with. And I say that because for years I think I ignored the signs. Um, I kind of went through life just kind of saying, "Oh, this is how life is. This is how life is supposed to be," and didn't really realize that I was kind of dealing with kind of a ball of just crap going inside that I wasn't kind of willing to admit that things were not well. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's pretty common amongst
yeah,
cops, right? It's,
absolutely,
bury it down, compartmentalize
yeah,
everything, you know.
yeah. Because when I look back on things, like I probably so this happened in 2011. I probably started showing signs of PTSD probably in 2012 or
Yeah.
even late 2011. Um, I look back to I had a scenario where I was having some like vision issues, was having some kind of like like the scrambled TV stuff that you see, like the scrambled black and white TV that you see
Yeah.
back in the days. You're about the same age as me, probably, right? So I was having kind of that going on, and we thought maybe it was like a torn retina or something like that, and we got my eyes checked, and it was nothing. And I kind of just chalked it up to like, well, I don't know what it is. And then years later, when I actually talked to a neurologist, they found out that I have this thing called snow vision syndrome. And it's a neurological issue. It's not terminal or bad. I mean, it's not good or bad. It's just more of annoying, and it comes from people that that have PTSD basically.
Interesting.
And so they've told me I could take medication that I don't take or supplements and try to make it change. And I'm just like, kind of like, this is what I'm living with at this point. But
Wow.
that's kind of a side note. But yeah, so probably 2012 is when I started kind of having signs of PTSD.
Yeah.
So,
And it sounds like family's really important to you. I'm assuming that,
yeah.
in this journey that you've had, that's been a big part of getting better.
Yeah, I think so I'll delve into over the years. I think for dealing with PTSD when I was, early on, I was using alcohol and food as a coping mechanism. Those are kind of my big things. I tell everybody, I'm like, there's different kinds of people that are, dependent on alcohol, right? So there's a guy that has to drink alcohol every day just to cope and deal with life, right? Or there's the ones that when they do, they might hit it pretty hard. And that's kind of what I ended up being. I would use alcohol to kind of deal with stuff. I would eat to deal with coping. And so I was dealing with depression and anxiety and PTSD. And so it's hard to explain, but like my body at times, I think back and I was like, I always felt like my chest was tight and my heart was gonna like blow out of my chest.
Hmm.
And so this is stuff that I just like thought was normal. And I'd go to the doctor and I'd be like, I think something's wrong with me. And they're like, yeah, it looks like you're stressed out and you're having some anxiety issues. Like I always thought there was like something more to it, right? I'm like, this has got to be something else. But I think uh, struggling so much over the years. Like I've lost a lot of weight now. I'm still want to lose more, but I got up to like almost 300 pounds when I
Wow.
was at my heaviest, and I just was using food as a coping mechanism in an unhealthy way, and I was using alcohol to deal with stuff. And um, I think my wife is really the one who kind of got me to start saying, "Hey, I need to go seek out some help." Right. So she started doing therapy back in 2023, and started doing really well with her PTSD and like started kind of seeing a 180. And for me, I had been, this is 12 years of just kind of like staying afloat. Like I'm just like, I don't really know what's going on in my body. I'm having these like anger issues. I'm having, depression and I feel like my chest is going to come out of my, like my heart's going to come out of my chest, just weird stuff like that. And so she started seeing a therapist for completely different things. And I was still struggling. And I was like, I went to a training at my current apartment, and it was like a detective training, right? And so I'm seeing these videos and photos of interviews of like child abuse cases, and because they're talking about like cases that they had done and like how they investigated, right?
Yeah.
And I like felt sick to my stomach, um, but it lasted like a couple weeks. Like I just was
Hmm.
off, and so I go to a training in New Mexico, and I'm on an airplane, and I have like a panic attack. I think I was gonna have a heart attack.
Wow.
So I'm having this stuff start like popping up. I'm like, what is happening? I go to this training and we're talking about like response to bombings. It was the training we went to. And so all of a sudden I flash back to an incident where I was down in Seattle area and there was 5 people shot outside right where I was at. And I had to go like render aid and like take over the scene. I was an MPO for my assignment at that time. And so I'm having like these flashbacks to things that had happened, back in 2016, right? And so um, I got back from this training and I saw a flyer on the wall, and it was this like first responder conference, mental health and wellness conference.
Hmm.
And I just looked at my sergeant and I was like, "Hey man, I need to go to that training." And he's like, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah, like that's like I need to go to that." And he's like, "Okay, we'll sign you up." And I'm like, "Okay." So I go to this training. I sat there for 2 days and I listened to these guys talk about PTSD and trauma and like all these symptoms. And I was like check marking everything. I'm like, "Oh, yep, that." I'm like all these symptoms of PTSD in first responders, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I talked to my wife and I was like, "Hey, I know you're doing therapy and you're doing well. Like I'm not doing well. I, was struggling quite a bit just to kind of like function. And I was like, can you talk to your therapist and see if there's a possibility for me to go to see somebody?" And so like 2 days later, I get this therapist and then like we start um, delving into me, right? And what's been going on for the last 12 years. And that was the first time I got to talk about my shooting and actually like let the emotions out, like actually get a cry, like get a talk. Cause cops talk about all this stuff and you're in cop mode, you're in professional mode. I got to talk about my shooting and actually like let my emotions out. I got to cry
Yeah.
and like let it out. And it was the best healing for trauma that I could ever done for myself in that one session. And I've continued to do therapy ever since, every 2 weeks, because that's really what I think saved me from, you know, di- working on myself and doing therapy has been huge. I think if I don't know, I don't even, to be honest, I don't know where I would be at this point in my life if I hadn't done that. So that was the big kind of turning point. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing well. I'm just staying afloat, and I had to get it figured out, or else I was going to be in a bad place. I wasn't doing well, so mentally. So
Yeah. Man, good for you to realize that, that's what you need. As you were
yeah,
talking, I was kind of curious. I think I've seen you post some stuff before, but I mean, you're
yeah,
a man of faith, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah. So did
yeah,
I always say this, but there's no coincidences. What happened to you, it's we never know what's going to happen or why things happen, but you know
yeah,
you happen to go to another department and you end up in New Mexico and you see a flyer on the wall, and that flyer on the wall started this kind of this journey of healing.
yeah.
If you wouldn't have seen that flyer on the wall in New Mexico, who knows where you'd be today. um,
Yeah, it's weird too because like so this conference I still go to these conferences. I think I'm going to my third one coming up in October. I am a big supporter of mental health and wellness now that I've been kind of dealing with it throughout the years. I've also been very transparent with people because, as you know, there's a big stigma with mental health and first responders. I think a lot of people feel like they can't reach out for help without being judged or without the department maybe taking a stance against you a little bit.
yeah.
Um, I've been really big on my struggles with my other coworkers, and I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I wanna be as transparent as I can be, so that if I can maybe help one person, two people, right, to go, you know what, dude, I need to go get help. I need to go talk to somebody. Then in my eyes, it's worth it, and that's kind of why I've taken that stance. For a long time, I didn't post on social media about my mental health because I think I was scared to. I think it was one of those like I was just kind of holding it tight. But I just realized like if I'm not showing my kind of journey and I'm not showing what I've dealt with or what I've overcome, that I think it was time for me to do that so I can maybe help other people. And I've already had like multiple people reach out to me, like old coworkers even be like, "Hey, I saw that you posted something about mental health. Like, I've been really struggling to find a good therapist. Like, do you have names of anybody that I could go to and see?" And like for me, that's worth it. Like,
Yeah.
if I could help one person, because I've had friends in the past, not in law enforcement, but I've had friends kill themselves and die from suicide, and so I kind of take a big for me dealing with mental health myself. Like that's huge for me to like if I can reach out and maybe help somebody from not doing that. Um, that's why I'm transparent. That's why I'm open about my struggles. So
Yeah, and you never know who's listening. It's like kids. You say things around kids, and they hear every word, but you don't always know they're listening. And you just being open and transparent, just
yeah,
with your teammates and other people, and they hear, oh, well, this guy's not ashamed of it, and they're picking that up. And if they do get into
yeah,
something that's awesome, that people have reached out to you, personally, they
yeah.
might not say anything in the middle of the conversation, but to know that you're a safe space for them to get some advice at least, and kind of point them in the right direction, man. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those guys like I'm never going to judge people. I've sat in the same, I've been in the same shoes as those guys. I've dealt with the same stuff. Like I just want people to be like able to come forward and talk about it, man, because it's hard when you grow up in kind of the first responder kind of mentality used to be like, oh, just deal with it, dude.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. And so over time, man, like that gets bad. The one thing I didn't kind of touch on is certain things that pop open when you got PTSD. One of my biggest things was anger, and so I didn't even know where it was coming from for a long time. Like I would just snap, or like noises, or I would like my kids are playing, just doing normal stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like yelling, and my wife's looking at me like, what is going on? And this is stuff that I didn't even realize that was really common with people that have been through traumatic incidents. That a lot of that built up trauma manifests in anger when it comes outward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was dealing with that where I would just get angry or negative, or I get upset about things, and I didn't even really know why until I started seeing a therapist and kind of delving in headfirst into trauma and mental health. Um, it's funny because I'll tell everybody, I'm like, hey, even though I've dealt with my mental health, there's still ups and downs. Like I'm gonna have good and bad days, but I'm like generally happy where I'm at right now. I'm happy with my job right now and my career. I'm happy with my family. Like everybody's happy and healthy. Like I actually am living in the moment and being present, because that's something that's really hard too. People isolate and they don't sometimes they don't live in the present, right? They get very wrapped up in I felt like for years I was an autopilot. There's some of the stuff that I kind of went through. I kind of talked about it a little bit, but it's, you kind of go on autopilot and you just kind of are like, you're there, but you're not there. And so that's really
Yeah.
hard, I think. Um, you know, I tell everybody, I'm like, it's a journey, but at the end of the day, if you reach out for help and you work on yourself, you can get to a place where you're like happy with who you are, and you can kind of overcome it. Like it's not a prison sentence. I don't want anybody to think that they're just going to be stuck in the PTSD cycle. It's why they call it, I think they call it PTSI now. It's like, it's post-traumatic. It's like injury instead of disorder is what they call it now, basically, because it can be healed. And that's the thing that I want people to realize. Like if you work on yourself and you do the work, and it's hard, like it's hard to face your crap. Like it's hard to deal with it and talk about it. There's definitely sessions that I've talked to my therapist where I leave that session crying, or I'm in tears, and it just is what it is. Like I that whole tough mentality, oh, can't cry, like that doesn't help you.
Yeah.
So, but you can overcome it, and you can kind of get to a place where you're happy with yourself. And um, I'm still doing law enforcement, but I'm also looking forward to what's after. And so um, I wanted to be in a place where I was healthy mentally and physically, and so that I can enjoy my life after it. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, which is good. It was a journey, but I think my wife was huge because she saw me struggling and she was dealing with her own stuff, and she's like, we both got to make a change. We both got to figure it out. And I think realistically that was a huge like kick in the butt. Like I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Doing this forever is not worth it. So
Yeah, it's good to have a strong woman behind us.
yeah.
I always say that, those, I don't know where we'd be if we didn't have women kind of pushing us, good wife.
Yeah, my wife even looks at me and she's like, "What did you do before me?" I'm like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
I don't know. I survived, I guess.
absolutely.
One of the things, like you said, this is a journey. It absolutely is a journey, and people can fix themselves, but not if they don't do anything. It's only a journey if you take the first step. And until you do that, you're not going to be walking through the journey at all. So,
100%.
to actually put yourself out there and first, I guess, realize that you are having issues, kind of, and
Yeah.
then, reach out, have conversations, figure it out. I mean, even if you feel, that you can't talk to anybody, you can talk to Google. You can jump
Yeah.
online, you can get resources. There's lots of resources, but you have to take the first step to try to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Uh, I do want to, before I forget, I wrote it down because you had mentioned
Yeah.
about going to this conference. There's a ton
Yeah.
of these types of conferences out there, and a lot of people say, these are great. Some are
Yeah.
military, police, fire. Some of them are
Mhm.
combined. Just what's the
Yeah.
what's the name of the one that you've had a lot of success with?
So the one I went to, it's called First Responders Conferences.
Okay.
So it's actually it's owned by a former deputy I used to work with,
Really?
and she's done a phenomenal job. They go all over the country and they put on these 2-day conferences throughout the country. Um, and she always gets different speakers to kind of come in, but there's pretty specific guy that I kind of I think changed my perspective or kind of made me realize what was going on. This guy is Matt Quackenbush is his name, and he's
Mm.
one of the directors of Deer Hollow. It's a PTSD treatment center in Utah.
Okay.
That guy is like spot on with PTSD and trauma, and he's been doing that for like 20 years with first responders. Um, because I tell everybody, I'm like, if I wouldn't have sought out help with therapy, that would have been my next step. Is probably going to an inpatient treatment center.
Yeah.
And that's where I would have gone was Deer Hollow, just because I've heard and I have friends that have gone there and had such success with their mental health. So yeah, that first responder conferences, they're awesome. I'm going to one in October. Um, I may even, reach out in the future. She's always looking for new speakers. I've thought about doing that when I'm either almost done with law enforcement or maybe even when towards the end of my career now, just kind of speaking about mental health and
Yeah.
kind of what we talked about today. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I could see
yeah,
you doing that for sure. Um,
yeah,
you know, Obviously mental health is important, but
yeah.
why is it so important? So, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in just your life, your family life, work life, since actually taking that step for your journey?
So for work life, gosh, I went through lots of ups and downs when I was dealing with PTSD, and there was a lot of times I thought about leaving the career. Especially back, 2021, 2020, things were kind of pretty crazy in the Seattle area. I actively was looking for other jobs at the time. Um, and when I got help in 2023, that kind of like revamped my outlook on my career. Um, it put me in a place where I was actually enjoying be there again, and I was enjoying being at work and doing my job. And now the position I'm in now, I might even stay till 25-year mark in Washington State now, just because I'm really liking what I'm doing. Because I was at the point where I was like 20 years and I'm done. I'll go do something else, right? But it's really kind of revamped my outlook on that. As far as family, like me and my wife have the best relationship we've ever had. We've both worked really hard on ourselves, and I think we embraced the growth and like the changes in each other when it came to our mental health issues. I think that was huge because if one of you changes but you both don't, it's a hard time to be married to somebody, right? Because
Yeah.
somebody else is working on themselves and bettering themselves and kind of getting back to a place where they're healthy. And if the other person isn't, it's pretty rough. And it took me a little bit of time. I was a little bit after her kind of in that walk, but yeah, I enjoy my kids. That's another thing. Like being present in the moment has been really huge for me because for a long time I was just kind of like on autopilot, and I was here, but not necessarily always in the moment or um, living life and kind of like enjoying being in life, right? Um, like going to like sporting events and concerts and stuff have always been kind of tough after being in this shooting. A lot of PTSD stuff, I like crowds and stuff were always kind of weird for me, but I've really like last year I went to like the Savannah Bananas game. I went to a Seahawks game
Yeah.
with my kid, and like I just was, it doesn't mean I'm not like a little bit on edge, kind of, because I don't know, it's the unknown, right? But like I I go to concerts with my wife all the time, and I'm just like enjoying it. I'm being in the moment, and enjoying seeing my kids grow up and like being kids. Cause that for a
Yeah.
long time, I just was a roller coaster, man, of emotions. And, um, yeah, I mean, I see a therapist twice a month, but like last couple times I've talked to my therapist, I'm like, I don't really have a ton to talk about. I mean, like you can, you can continue to talk. Cause I think that's important with that walk. You could having good friends and having a spouse to talk to is great. But I like having the third party perspectives for
Yeah.
somebody that's like, that's what their job is to be a therapist, and that's what they were trained to do. And um, I see my therapist is through it's virtual, so I like this. So
Oh,
I'm on the
okay.
phone, and she's based out of a different state, but
Hmm.
she's been great. And that's been kind of one of the nice things about technology is you can do therapy anywhere, which is
Yeah. I never
I
would have
tell I
thought of
tell
that.
everybody, I'm like, yeah, I tell everybody, I'm like, dude, it's that easy. You don't have to go to office anymore. You can literally talk to somebody on your phone.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been huge. I tell everybody, I'm like, I will most likely do therapy for the rest of my life, and that's just how it's going to be. And I'm okay with that. And yeah, it's life's been good. I'm enjoying life. And for a long time, I just was just here, but not really enjoying anything. And
Yeah.
I've kind of gotten back to the point where I'm like, you see my posts online, like a lot of them are funny and joking around, and I'm just having a good time. I'm enjoying being here, and um, I we always talk about coping mechanisms. Like I obviously have, I've gotten rid of the unhealthy ones. Like I've gotten my my eating disorder like in check. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I've been sober for almost 2.5 years,
Well, good
which
job,
is
man.
huge.
Yeah.
I think I've been nicotine free for almost 10 months. And so I've had to like do other things. So working out's been huge for me. I got my Peloton and I got my weights in my front room of my house. And that's kind of like my go-to. I have to do that. If I don't work out, I get my body's kind of thrown off.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, I'm like, there's medication, cool, but like working out is just as good. And it really helps people just kind of like get that, release that, all that pent up crap that you got inside, and it helps me.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing is because I'm a joker, right? Is I love to do photoshopping, and I do a lot of photoshopping of friends and coworkers, and they're funny, and people crack up, and that's kind of like one of the things I'm like, yeah, I'm having a good time doing it. So,
Yeah.
oh,
And I know you had mentioned earlier on too about, some of the humor went away. You were a little bit more
yeah,
serious after the shooting, and
yeah,
now it's kind of coming
yeah,
back up. I mean,
yeah.
at what part does humor have in mental health, you think?
Um, I think for me, man, it's huge because like I don't, I don't know. It's hard to talk about because like when I was going through my struggles, I probably would come off like people probably I masked it. I probably acted like I was having a good time or joking around, but I really that was just kind of put on a show. Humor for me is like I've always been a funny guy. Going back into my childhood, high school, I played sports like baseball and football. I always had a good time, and I was having just enjoying life,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where humor is for me, man. Like if you can't like enjoy it and crack some jokes and like have a good time, like what are we even doing? That's kind of where I'm at now. Like
Yep.
it's been nice to kind of get back to that place because um, I think for a long time with my mental health, I wasn't in that place where I was, everything was just kind of depression and anxiety and PTSD kind of all built up. It just made life miserable. And I was just kind of trying to stay like afloat from, drowning basically from that. And so
Yeah.
now that I'm in a place where I'm at, like the humor and cracking jokes, posting memes, it's like, it's all fun and games, man. It's good for me to like kind of take it lighthearted and enjoy life. So
Yeah. Not take yourself too seriously.
absolutely.
Yeah. The masking part, I think us cops are good with that sometimes. Everybody's joking around, but, you could be dying on the inside and everybody thinks you're just happy go lucky. But, you know, I guess
Oh yeah.
know when to have the humor and
Because I
genuine.
will, 100%. And the masking thing's crazy because like when I was in New Mexico, like I talked about, I was with two friends down there and we were, hanging out, drinking beers. This is back in 2023. And I was probably at my lowest I've ever been.
Hmm.
And neither one of those guys knew. They had no
Man.
clue. Because they even look at it now and they're like, you weren't doing well then? I go, no, not at all. They're like, "Oh, we thought you were fine, man. You're just drinking beers, having a good time." I'm like, "Yeah," but I go internally, I was not doing well, and so I I think that's something to kind of think about too. Is you might have friends right now that are acting like everything's fine, and internally they're not. And so I always tell people, I'm like, check in on your friends, man. Like we don't do a good enough job, I think, staying in touch with some people.
Yeah.
I have friends all over the place that I'm not awesome sometimes at staying in touch, but I think that's important. Like they may need that text message, they may need that call. Like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. What's up, man? How are things going? I think that's huge because you never know, that phone call or that text might maybe help them. You never know what's going on with them.
Could
So
save their life.
100%.
Yeah, that's what, even just reaching out to someone and just letting them know that you've been thinking about them is sometimes, just all somebody needs. That's
Yeah,
it.
it's huge.
Yeah, when I left, that's when I left law enforcement. I thought, oh man, this because you get to do so much fun things with your best friends, and I thought, man, I'm gonna miss all these people. I might miss the job, and I haven't missed the job, but I realized that all the people that I actually cared about, I still talk to them. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
I didn't lose the friends. That was one thing I was concerned about, and so that didn't happen. But every once in a while the phone rings and I see it's so and so, and I'm like, oh man, I got to answer this call, or I can't. And just still stay in touch, but just say, hey, thinking about you, because all these guys that I worked with, except for I think one, are basically still working. So
Yeah.
and they're in it, and then I always think about that because I see the life on the other side of it, and I know that there's a great life on the other side of it, and I know that some of them are probably masking it, or they're just holding on for the 20-year mark or something, and I'm sure they're not doing well. So it is good to keep in touch with the buddies and check in on each other for sure.
That 20-year mark's huge for people. And I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like I may or may not have a countdown on my clock or my phone that talks about when I'm, hit my 20 years in Washington. And, but like I said, right now I'm liking what I'm doing, and I may stay longer, but I like seeing you, who has been in law enforcement before, and kind of like show people like, hey, there is stuff outside this career.
Yep.
This isn't the only thing you can do. Because I think a lot of people got to get stuck in that, like, oh, I'm stuck in this career. And if this is what you want to do, and you want to get out and do something else, like I support that. I'm very pro doing something else, but I think we kind of get so stuck in our minds sometimes that we're like, this is the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
That's not true. So
Yeah, the skills you learn in law enforcement, just from a personality standpoint, talking to people, problem solving, just everything, project management, everything that you could possibly do. I mean, it all relates perfectly to the corporate world. It's just a different environment. That's really all it is.
absolutely.
One of the things I did want to ask you, because I've never done therapy myself.
Okay.
I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that don't go to therapy because they haven't had something happen to them.
Yeah.
But I think just life in general, you stack things, issues.
Oh, yeah.
With you got into therapy because of you had a critical incident at work. But
Yeah.
would you say that if that incident never happened to you and you just one day decided to go to therapy, do you think even without the incident it would still be valuable to your life?
100%. And what I tell everybody, I'm like, you have to shop therapists, because and to be honest, early on, years ago, I sought out therapy because I thought that's what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to therapy and I was not 100% honest with my therapist. I was checking a box and I thought, okay, I saw a therapist, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
And then when I started to seek out therapists, I had one that initially I had, and I kind of did that, and it turned me off to a therapist in 2023. And then my wife had been kind of having some good experiences with that, and then that's when I started seeing my current therapist. Um, Even if I hadn't been in my critical incident, I mean, like I said, a lot of things throughout my career have kind of messed with my mental health. It's not just that shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the calls I've been to, some of the cases I investigated, we've talked about some of that stuff in therapy more than I've even talked about my shooting sometimes, right? Because
Yeah.
it just kind of it piles up. I 100% would basically tell people that therapy's worth it. I think for everybody, man, to be honest. I think cops, I'm not going to say it should be mandatory, but I think not a bad idea
Yeah.
for everybody. So it's honestly saved my life, to be honest. So it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. So
Yeah, I don't think
yeah,
I.
I 100% would say seek out a therapist and don't get frustrated. Like you may have one or two that don't really fit with you.
Yeah,
But like I'm on my like third therapist right now, and she's been great. I've been with her for a couple years now. So
yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anybody that's gone to therapist and done therapy that hasn't thought it was, useful.
worthwhile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
worthwhile.
100%. Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of the number one thing that's helped you push past the incident and to really get to a point you're at now with therapy?
Yeah, I think therapy has been the biggest thing. And like I said, just dealing with more healthy coping mechanisms, I think too. So like
Yeah.
um for me, working out, listening to music, watching movies, spending time with my family, going to sporting events, concerts, like a lot of that stuff is just kind of what I enjoy doing. I do some breathing techniques too, some of that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I mean, it's changing the unhealthy coping mechanisms to healthy coping mechanisms was huge for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, therapy's been like the number one staple for me, and I think it will continue to be like that for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there one piece of advice that you've gotten maybe through therapy or just through having conversations at some of these conferences? Like, is there any like one thing you can say, man, this, if I could tell anybody today that is in law enforcement or has gone through a shooting, like what's the best piece
Um,
of advice that you could give somebody to kind of move past an incident?
I think for me, I think the one thing is, I think we kind of talked about it earlier, is like don't be afraid to reach out for help. I think that's the big thing, is like people are scared.
Yeah.
Because it's scary to have to like deal with your internal demons, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, if you deal with it and you hit it head on and you actually work on yourself, like you can change what's going on inside, and it can come out and be a better outcome for you in the long run. You're going to be happier. It's going to be the best thing you've ever done for yourself. So I think just kind of like, I think my biggest thing, man, is just admitting that maybe you've got some issues and you're willing to face it. I think that's the biggest thing I can tell people. Like, it's hard to admit that sometimes. I think a lot of times we hide from it, and
Yeah.
that's what I did for a long time. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate the conversation, and
absolutely.
the. It sounds like LinkedIn is probably the best, like, kind of public facing place that people can kind of connect with you if they have any questions or, just follow along with your journey, but also to maybe reach out and for any sort of discussions.
Absolutely. LinkedIn. I'm under Dirk Graham. Think I'm the only person that's on there that's a detective or a deputy. I'm always willing to help out if people want to send me a message on there, and if they've got questions. Like I'm 100% passionate about mental health and first responders, or anybody, to be honest. I don't even have to know you. You can reach out to me, and I'll give you the resources I know. And I'm always willing to help out. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. So
Awesome, man. Well, it's definitely been a pleasure to really kind of finally meet you face to face,
absolutely.
albeit virtually. But really after connecting with you so many years ago, it's been awesome to really sit down and have a great conversation with you. So yeah, I just appreciate you being willing to come on and kind of talk through these different things that have happened in your life. It's affected you in obviously a powerful way, and I just appreciate your openness and willingness to kind of come on here and share your story, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me to come on, and I appreciate being on here, and hopefully this conversation may help somebody, if they're dealing with anything with mental health. So that was kind of my driving force to definitely talk to you today, because I feel like that's really important for people to deal with. So
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you, following along
Absolutely.
with your journey, and of course, seeing some of these hilarious memes that you're always posting. I'm glad you're back in the saddle with the humor piece, because you've always got something good. You're one of the
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's definitely something that won't stop. So
Perfect. All right, man. Well, it's been great, and I really appreciate you coming on.
all right, thank you. Yeah, it was good talking to you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Dirk Graham. I want to thank Dirk for coming on the podcast and candidly sharing his story in hopes of helping others. If you're a first responder and want to connect with Dirk, find him on LinkedIn, linked in the show notes, and send him a message. As Dirk spoke so highly of first responders conferences and Deer Hollow, I've also linked their websites in the show notes in case you'd like to learn more about what they have to offer. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the Stranger Conversations podcast at your favorite listening platform, as well as on social media at stranger.convo.pod, so you don't miss out on the conversations to come. While you're listening, take a minute to give the show a 5-star review. This is a great way for us to grow the podcast and reach more people. If you're interested in being the next guest on the Stranger Conversations podcast, visit strangerconversationspodcast.com and sign up via the show's calendar. I also want to thank today's sponsor, Hammer Defense. Hammer Defense makes the world's first go-anywhere self-defense cell phone case, perfect for protecting both you and your phone. You can learn more at hammerdefenseproducts.com, also linked in the show notes. Make sure you use my discount code TAYAZ12 at checkout and receive 10% off and free shipping on your order. Thanks for listening. I'm Tay Jones, and we'll chat later.